Behold the splendor of his glory, the burning bush encounter. In the 3rd year of Jehoiakim, when the Israelites languished under the harsh dominion of Pharaoh Ramses II, a humble shepherd named Moses tended his flock in the desolate Midianite wilderness. The hot sun bore down relentlessly, while the bitter cries of his brethren echoed from the far-off lands of bondage in Egypt. Once he had known the confines of palace walls, a life of privilege in the household of Pharaoh. Yet now he felt like a mere shadow of his former self, estranged not only from his family but from his very purpose. As he wandered beyond the familiar hills, a curious sight caught his eye, a bush ablaze with flames, yet untouched by fire. Intrigued, he drew near, captivated by this extraordinary phenomenon. The air crackled with a palpable energy, and in that sacred moment, the voice of Yahweh rang out, breaking through the silence of the wilderness, commanding, "Moses! Moses!" An awe-struck silence enveloped him as he reverently replied, "Here I am." He could feel the weight of glory pressing upon him as the voice instructed him to remove his sandals, for the ground beneath him was holy. In trembling fear, Moses stood before the Almighty, awash in the surreal nature of the moment. God spoke of the suffering of his people, burdened under oppression, and of his divine plan to deliver them from slavery. The gravity of the proclamation settled heavily upon Moses' heart, igniting uncertainty as he questioned, "Who am I that I should go to Pharaoh and bring the children of Israel out of Egypt?" In this moment of self-doubt, God's reassurance pierced his insecurity. "I will be with you." Those words lingered in the deep recesses of Moses' soul, a flicker of faith igniting amidst the shadows of doubt. Before we continue with this incredible biblical account, I want to make sure you don't miss any of these powerful scripture stories. Click the bell icon and select all notifications. These biblical narratives have transformed countless lives throughout history. If God's word through this story is blessing you, please like and share with someone who needs to hear about God's faithfulness today. Tell me in the comments, which biblical story has most impacted your faith journey? I'm always amazed how God's word speaks to hearts across generations. Now let's continue with what the Lord did next. Empowered by divine purpose, Moses returned to Egypt, where the heart of Pharaoh had hardened against the cries of the oppressed. In defiance, Pharaoh scoffed at Moses' demands, prompting God to unleash a torrent of plagues upon the land. The Nile turned to blood, the land swarmed with locusts, and darkness enveloped the people, each sign a testament to God's sovereignty and a challenge to the false gods of Egypt. Yet, the Israelites remained weary, each day drawing breath under the weight of despair, their faith wavering between hope and horror. As the night of the Passover arrived, a solemn command pierced the oppressive darkness. A lamb was to be sacrificed, its blood marking the doorposts of every home, a shield against impending doom. Moses stood as the harbinger of divine instruction amid growing chaos. The air thickened with the anticipation of liberation or sorrow, as families clung to hope amid fear. At last, the dawn of departure broke. The Israelites, laden with the remnants of their bonds, gathered, their eyes alight with newfound hope, even as Pharaoh's armies pursued them with wrath. Reaching the shores of the Red Sea, chaos threatened to drown their dreams of freedom as waves surged like menacing titans. Fear gripped the hearts of the people, but Moses, emboldened by the promise of God, stretched forth his hand, and the winds howled, the waters parted, revealing a path through the depths. As the Israelites crossed into the realm of freedom, the mighty hand of God moved visibly before them. Yet the wilderness loomed ahead, vast and uncertain, beckoning questions anew. Would they trust in the God who had liberated them? Resolute, Moses looked onward, conviction swelling within. This was merely the beginning of a sacred journey toward the Promised Land. As the last of the Israelite congregation emerged from the parted waters, breathless and astonished by the miracle that had just transpired, the sound of Pharaoh's chariots thundered behind them, drowning out the joyous cries. A sudden urgency enveloped the people. The path straightened before them, yet uncertainty gnawed at their hearts. Moses, taking account of the multitude's apprehension, raised his voice, "Fear not, stand firm, and see the salvation of the Lord, which he will work for you today." Exodus 14:13. His words were both a command and a soothing balm amidst the tumult. With unyielding faith, he led the way, emboldened by the promise that had been declared to him. As they journeyed deeper into the wilderness, the landscape morphed around them, dry sands stretching toward the horizon, rocky outcrops standing like sentinels. They traveled for 3 days without finding water. Parched and weary, complaints began to rise among the people like a mighty tide. "What shall we drink?" they cried, voices filled with despair. In that moment of trial, Moses turned to the Lord, who instructed him to cast a tree into the bitter waters of Marah. Obediently, Moses took the branch, and as it touched the water, the bitterness was transformed into sweetness. There, at Marah, the Lord revealed himself anew, saying, "If you will diligently listen to the voice of the Lord your God, and do that which is right in his eyes, I will put none of the diseases on you that I put on the Egyptians, for I am the Lord your healer." Exodus 15:26. The people beheld this sign with wonder, and their hearts began to stir with faith once more. They praised the Lord in their newfound strength, but as soon as the song faded, doubts returned, a familiar shadow in their hearts. Next, they arrived in the plains of Elim, where 12 springs of water and 70 palm trees grew, a brief respite to rejuvenate their spirits. Yet their journey was far from over. Soon, hunger returned with a vengeance. The groans of the people filled the air as they lamented their previous comforts in Egypt. "Would that we had died by the hand of the Lord in the land of Egypt," they wailed, recalling the flesh pots and the bread, their dissatisfaction echoing in the wilderness. Moses sought solace from God, and the Lord answered him with a divine promise, "I will rain down bread from heaven for you." Exodus 16:4. Each morning thereafter, the Israelites would awaken to find the ground covered with manna. "What is it?" they would exclaim, for it was unfamiliar and the taste like honey. Yet even with this miraculous provision, their hearts were prone to forgetfulness. They were instructed to gather only what they needed for each day, a lesson of trust in God's daily supply. As the days turned into weeks, the people's faith ebbed and flowed. But God's fiery spirit led them as a cloud by day and a pillar of fire by night, a guide amidst their trials, reminding them of his unbroken covenant, sustaining them in the wilderness. Through each test they faced, God was shaping his people, forging their identities as his chosen ones, preparing them for the land flowing with milk and honey. And in his mercy, he longed for them to understand the breadth of his eternal promise. But what they did not yet see was the ultimate purpose woven into their trials, a deliverance that would not only free them from physical slavery, but also lead them into an everlasting covenant, fulfilled in the coming generations. Little did they know, the path to their promise was being laid through not just their journey, but their very hearts. How would they respond to the trials ahead? And the people of Israel continued their sojourn through the wilderness, with the sun scorching their backs by day and the coolness of the night, reminding them of the God who brought them forth from Egypt. Yet their hearts remained heavy, for their trust in the Lord was like a wavering flame, swaying with every gust of complaint. On the 15th day of the 2nd month after they had departed from Egypt, a gathering took place, their voices rising in unison. "If only we had died in Egypt. There we sat by the meat pots and we ate bread until we were full. For you have brought us out into this wilderness to kill this whole assembly with hunger." Exodus 16:3. Moses and Aaron, burdened by the people's grumbling, fell on their faces before the Lord, and the glory of the Lord appeared in the cloud. The Lord spoke to them, saying, I have heard the grumbling of the people of Israel. Say to them, At twilight you shall eat meat, and in the morning you shall be filled with bread. Then you shall know that I am the Lord your God. Exodus 16:12. That evening quail came up and covered the camp, and in the morning there lay a dew upon the ground. When it evaporated, there appeared on the surface of the wilderness a fine, flake-like thing, as fine as frost on the ground. The Israelites looked at one another, asking in amazement, What is it? For they did not know what it was. And Moses said to them, It is the bread that the Lord has given you to eat. Exodus 16:15. 12 baskets were filled each time, as families gathered their portion, enough bread for those who were hungry. Yet God had given them a command, Gather of it, every man according to his eating, an omer for every person. Exodus 16:16. But some, in their haste and disbelief, gathered more than they needed. The next day what remained bred worms and became foul, teaching them the lesson of his provision. Yet still they could not remember the goodness of the Lord, and grumbled again against Moses and Aaron, saying, Why have you brought us up out of Egypt to make us die in the wilderness? Exodus 17:3. Then the Lord instructed Moses, Strike the rock, and water will come out of it, that the people may drink. Exodus 17:6. Moses obeyed, striking the rock at Horeb. Water gushed forth, enough to quench the thirst of the multitude and their livestock. In that moment, they witnessed that their God was indeed the living God, providing for their needs even when they lacked faith. Yet, temptation lingered. When the Amalekites came and fought against Israel at Rephidim, Moses summoned Joshua, saying, Choose for us men, and go out and fight the Amalekites. Exodus 17:9. Moses climbed the hill with the staff of God in his hand. When he held up his hands, Israel prevailed. But when he let down his hands, Amalek prevailed. Exhausted, Aaron and Hur steadied his arms, one on each side, until the setting sun saw the victory completed, the people cheering triumphantly as Moses built an altar and called it, The Lord is my banner. Exodus 17:15. Yet deeper still lay the mystery of God's sovereign design amidst their wandering, each miracle, each trial, a lesson in faith and reliance upon him. And beyond the horizon stood a promise unfolding, a destiny yet to be revealed. The people would soon discover that every need met echoed the truth of a greater deliverance yet to come, heralding a fulfillment far beyond their earthly journey. But what was this deeper purpose? Could they fathom the fullness of his plan as they pressed onward? And it came to pass that as the Israelites journeyed onward, the Lord spoke to Moses once more, saying, I will now descend in the cloud and speak with you, and I will take of the Spirit that is upon you, and will put it upon them. Numbers 11:17. Moses gathered 70 elders of the people and stood before the tent of meeting where the cloud descended upon them. The Spirit of the Lord rested upon them, and they prophesied. But as their hearts swelled with the holy presence, 2 men remained in the camp, Eldad and Medad. Though they had not gone out to the tent, they too were filled with the Spirit and prophesied in the midst of the people. Numbers 11:24-26. A young man ran to tell Moses, saying, Eldad and Medad are prophesying in the camp. And Joshua, son of Nun, who had been Moses' aide since his youth, said, My lord Moses, stop them. Numbers 11:28. But Moses replied, Are you jealous for my sake? Would that all the Lord's people were prophets, that the Lord would put his Spirit on them. Numbers 11:29. Then the quail came again at the Lord's command, and he gave them flesh to eat. But as they indulged, their appetites betrayed them, and the Lord's anger burned against the people. You shall not eat meat for just 1 day, not 2 days, nor 5, nor 10, nor 20 days, but for a whole month until it comes out at your nostrils and becomes loathsome to you. Numbers 11:19-20. Thus the Israelites learned that God's provision would not be squandered, nor used as a means to rebel against his perfect will. In the midst of their despair, Miriam and Aaron spoke against Moses, saying, "Has the Lord spoken only through Moses? Has he not spoken through us also?" Numbers 12:2. The Lord heard it, and suddenly the cloud covered the tent, and he called out to Miriam and Aaron, "Come out, you three, to the tent of meeting." And they came out, Numbers 12:4. The Lord descended in a pillar of cloud, and he spoke, "Hear my words. When there is a prophet among you, I, the Lord, reveal myself to them in visions. I speak to them in dreams. But this is not true of my servant Moses. He is faithful in all my house." Numbers 12:6-7. And the anger of the Lord was kindled against them, and he departed from them. When the cloud lifted from the tent, Miriam became leprous, white as snow. Aaron turned toward her and said, "O my Lord, please do not hold against us the sin we have so foolishly committed." Numbers 12:11. Moses cried out to the Lord, "O God, please heal her." Numbers 12:13. And the Lord replied that if her father had spat in her face, she would be shamed for 7 days. Let her be confined outside the camp for a week, and afterward she may be brought back in. Numbers 12:14. The people did not move until Miriam was brought back in, illustrating the weight of disunity and the weight of God's favor resting upon Moses. The Lord taught them again that obedience brings blessing, and discord among his chosen could lead to dire consequences. That period served to deepen their understanding of God's authority and design, yet still the promise remained on the horizon. The promise of a land flowing with milk and honey, and a covenant relationship renewed. Each day of uncertainty shaped them into the people of God, molded by trials, miracles, and the profound truth that even their wanderings were part of his great plan. But who would lead them into this promised destiny? What trials would yet forge their faith like gold amidst the fire? The mystery of his sovereign design echoed within their hearts, urging them onward toward the discovery of his greater purpose, yet unveiled. And the people journeyed in the wilderness of Zin, and the days turned into weeks, marked by the rhythm of their footsteps upon the dry sands. Their hearts were heavy, filled with memories of the plagues of Egypt, the crossing of the Red Sea, and the wonders that the Lord had performed. Yet their dissatisfaction grew as they faced the trials of the desert, saying among themselves, "Would that we had remained in Egypt, for there we sat by the pots of meat, and we ate bread to the full. For you have brought us out into this wilderness to kill this whole assembly with hunger." Exodus 16:3. Hearing their murmurs, the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, "Behold, I will rain bread from heaven for you, and the people shall go out and gather a certain rate every day, that I may prove them whether they will walk in my law or not." Exodus 16:4. Thus, that evening the quails came, and in the morning the dew lay around the camp. When the dew lifted, behold, upon the face of the wilderness lay a small round thing, as small as the hoar-frost. And the children of Israel saw it, and said, "What is it?" For they did not know what it was. And Moses said to them, "This is the bread which the Lord has given you to eat." Exodus 16:15. Each day they gathered or left, and some gathered too much, while others had too little. Yet as the Lord had said, none of it spoiled. And thus they learned dependence upon the Lord, his provision unfailing and his faithfulness absolute. For 6 days they gathered, but on the 7th day they rested, following the command of the Lord, as he intended for them to cease from their labors and remember his goodness. But some among them did not heed the command. They went out to gather on the Sabbath and found none. The Lord said to Moses, "How long refuse you to keep my commandments and my laws?" Exodus 16:28. His voice echoed the gravity of disobedience and the importance of reverence for his instructions. Then the Lord commanded Moses to gather an omer of the manna and place it before the ark of the covenant. that it may be kept for generations to see, a testimony of his provision in their time of need. And the children of Israel did so, and gathered some more and some less. Exodus 16:17, a visible reminder of their past and a pledge of his continual care. Yet despite his miracles, a bitter spirit arose among them. They clamored for water, crying out, "Is the Lord among us or not?" Exodus 17:7. Their hearts wrestled with doubt, and once again their complaints reached Moses. "Why do you quarrel with me? Why do you test the Lord?" he asked them, feeling the weight of their frustration pressing heavily upon him. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Go on before the people, and take with you some of the elders of Israel, and take in your hand the rod with which you struck the river, and go. Behold, I will stand before you there on the rock in Horeb, and you shall strike the rock, and water will come out of it, that the people may drink." Exodus 17:5-6. Moses obeyed, and he struck the rock, and water poured forth abundantly for all their needs. Thus they named the place Massah and Meribah, because of the contention of the children of Israel, and because they tempted the Lord, saying, "Is the Lord among us or not?" As the days turned into weeks, and weeks into months, the people began to understand the seriousness of their covenant with God, sowing within them seeds of faith for the journey that lay ahead. Yet an unseen battle loomed on the horizon as the Amalekites came and fought against them. The Lord instructed Moses, "Write this as a memorial in a book, and rehearse it in the ears of Joshua. For I will utterly put out the remembrance of Amalek from under heaven." Exodus 17:14. The battle would begin as a challenge of faith, a trial that would reveal God's unwavering promise to fight for his people. Would they remember the miracles, the bread from heaven, the water from the rock? Would they stand firm in their trust before a new enemy? The unfolding of God's greater plan beckoned, shrouded in purpose and divine orchestration, an invitation to discover the depths of his glory and the victories that awaited those who believed. Then came the day when the Amalekites approached, fierce and unyielding, seeking to conquer the children of Israel. The sound of clanging swords and the cries of battle filled the air, and fear gripped the hearts of the people. Moses gathered the leaders, saying, "Choose for us men, and go out to fight against Amalek. Tomorrow I will stand on the top of the hill with the rod of God in my hand." Exodus 17:9. Thus Joshua rose up and fought against Amalek, and as Moses ascended the hill, he took with him Aaron and Hur. When Moses raised his hands in supplication to the Lord, Israel prevailed, but whenever he lowered his hands, Amalek prevailed. The burden of that battle weighed heavily upon him, and as the hours wore on, his hands grew weary. So Aaron and Hur took a stone and set it beneath him, and he sat upon it. They stood on either side, holding up his hands, one on one side and the other on the other side. Thus his hands were steady until the going down of the sun. And Joshua overcame Amalek and his people with the edge of the sword. Exodus 17:10-13. After the victory, the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, "Write this for a memorial in a book, and recount it in the hearing of Joshua, that I will utterly blot out the remembrance of Amalek from under heaven." Exodus 17:14. A solemn reminder marked their triumph, for it underscored the truth that victory comes through reliance on the Almighty. Moses built an altar there and named it Jehovah Nissi, for he said, "For the hand of the Lord has been raised against the throne of the Lord. The Lord will have war with Amalek from generation to generation." Exodus 17:15-16. The altar stood as a testimony to God's faithfulness, a remnant of his strength upon which they could depend. As the days continued, the people followed Moses and the cloud that guided them by day, and the fire that illuminated their path by night. At each stop, they saw the providence of the Lord manifest in bread, water, and now victory in battle. Yet, amid this divine provision, they were still a people learning to trust. In the encampment, as their weary limbs found rest, Murmurs stirred among them again. "When will we reach the promise?" they whispered, filled with uncertainty. Unbeknownst to them, God was shaping hearts, forging a nation that would bear witness to his glory for generations to come. One day, Jethro, the priest of Midian and father-in-law to Moses, received word of their triumphs. He journeyed to the wilderness, bringing with him Zipporah and their sons, Gershom and Eleazar. Upon greeting Moses, Jethro exclaimed, "Blessed be the Lord, who has delivered you out of the hand of the Egyptians and out of the hand of Pharaoh." Exodus 18:10. Moses recounted all that the Lord had done, the plagues, the sea, and the sweet waters of Marah, and Jethro rejoiced, saying, "Now I know that the Lord is greater than all gods, for in the very thing in which they behaved proudly, he was above them." Exodus 18:11. As Jethro observed the people coming to Moses for judgment from morning till evening, he counseled him, "What you are doing is not good. You will surely wear yourself out, and this thing is too much for you." Exodus 18:17-18. Moses heeded his father-in-law's wisdom, appointing leaders among the tribes to help bear the burden of judgment and guidance. Thus, the tapestry of God's plan wove tighter, a preparation not only for the trials ahead, but for the covenant to be established at Sinai. And while their journey continued, every step promised divine revelation and the unfolding of his sacred intent. "Surely the Lord's hand is upon this people," Jethro affirmed, as they marveled at the unfolding mysteries of the Almighty. Would they remain faithful to the God who had led them thus far? As whispers of the covenant began to stir among them, a promise lingered on the horizon, beckoning them toward their destiny, an invitation to witness the depth of his love and salvation that awaited. And it came to pass, on the morrow after Jethro's arrival, that Moses sought the face of the Lord in the quietness of the camp. The sun arose, casting golden rays upon the tents, and the people gathered, their hearts yearning for guidance. The Lord spoke to Moses, saying, "Prepare the people, for I shall come down upon Mount Sinai in the sight of all the people." Exodus 19:9. In reverence and fearfulness, Moses conveyed the message to the Israelites, reminding them of the holy nature of the encounter that awaited. "Consecrate yourselves," he urged, "for the third day the Lord will descend upon the mountain." Exodus 19:10. The people responded with a collective promise, saying, "All that the Lord has spoken, we will do." Exodus 19:8. Thus their hearts stirred, echoing a commitment they would soon discover would be tested. As the appointed day approached, the mountain was enveloped in thick clouds, and the sound of thunder rumbled ominously in the distance. A trumpet sounded, increasing in volume until it trembled the very ground beneath their feet. The people stood afar, their hearts gripped with awe and trepidation, as they beheld the majesty of God descending upon Sinai in fire, its smoke ascending like a furnace. Exodus 19-18. And all the people witnessed the glory of the Lord, and they trembled in their hearts. Moses, however, drawn by the divine call, approached the thick darkness where God was. The Lord spoke from the mountain, delivering the first words of the covenant. "I am the Lord your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage." Exodus 22. Each commandment flowed forth as a radiant revelation, etching his will upon the hearts of the people. "You shall have no other gods before me," he declared with authority, and the reverberation of his voice echoed through the valley, commanding allegiance and love. Exodus 23. Yet amidst the trembling earth and fiery display, the people quaked as fear rose within them. They retreated, saying to Moses, "You speak with us, and we will hear. But let not God speak with us, lest we die." Exodus 20:19. Moses comforted them, saying, "Fear not, for God has come to test you, and that his fear may be before you, so that you may not sin." Exodus 20:20. Thus he interceded on their behalf, drawing near to the Lord, who promised to guide and sustain his chosen. As the commandments were inscribed upon tablets of stone, the foundation for their covenant relationship was laid. The words would become their guide, their lamp for the journey ahead, as they traversed the wilderness, seeking the land flowing with milk and honey. Yet, as they received the holy law, the people remained unaware of the disobedience that would rise among them, a challenge to the very covenant that had begun to form. Their journey towards sanctification would not be easy, for the flesh often entices the heart to stray from the path of righteousness. And thus the tension grew, for although God had poured out his love and revealed his commands, there lingered an unspoken dilemma. Would they uphold the covenant, or would they succumb to their weaknesses, forsaking the promises displayed before them? As Moses descended with the tablets, the heartbeat of Israel hung on the precipice of faithfulness, intertwined with the divine mystery of God's sovereign plan. What would unfold next in this grand tapestry of redemption? The echo of the covenant declaration resounded through the ages, calling them to witness the unfolding of his glory, and yet a shadow loomed, a whisper of rebellion lurking in the hearts of the people, unseen but ever potent. And it came to pass that as Moses descended from the mountain, the radiance upon his face shone forth brightly, reflecting the glory of the Lord. The people beheld him, and their hearts trembled even more, for they could not look upon him because of the brilliance which surrounded him. Exodus 34:29. Moses called to them, though, and they gathered close, for he had brought the commandments inscribed by the finger of God. "Behold," Moses said, his voice steady, "the Lord has established his covenant with us. He has spoken to us, that we may walk in his ways and keep his statutes and commandments." As he spoke, the solemnity of the moment weighed upon them, for they remembered the fear they had felt on the mountain. But among the people, struggles began to arise. There were murmurs of discontent amongst certain factions, some hearts stirred with doubt, and others, emboldened by fear of the unknown, began to question Moses' authority. "Is he truly our guide?" they wondered. "Has he not led us from the hands of the Egyptians, yet has he not returned from the mount amidst strange wonders?" As days passed, the fear that once united them began to wane, and whispers of rebellion crept in. They said to Aaron, "Make us gods that shall go before us, for as for this Moses, we know not what has become of him." Exodus 32:1. Aaron, though hesitant, succumbed to their demands, and he gathered their gold, fashioning it into a molded calf. The people rejoiced and proclaimed, "This is your God, O Israel, that brought you out of Egypt." Exodus 32:4. The sound of revelry filled the air as they offered burnt offerings to the calf, their fidelity to the Almighty evaporating in the face of earthly desire. From the heights of Sinai, the Lord observed, and his wrath burned against the people. He said to Moses, "Go down, for your people, whom you brought out of the land of Egypt, have corrupted themselves." Exodus 32:7. Moses' heart was heavy as he descended the mountain, clutching the sacred tablets in his hands. As he drew near, the sounds of laughter and idolatry reached his ears, and he saw the calf and the dancing. With great anger, he cast the tablets from his hands, shattering them at the foot of the mountain. Exodus 32:19. "Why have you turned from the commands of the Lord?" Moses cried out, his heart breaking for his people. He pleaded with them to turn back, reminding them of the covenant, the love shown in their deliverance, and the presence of the Almighty who sought their devotion. In the silence that followed the clamor, a heavy stillness enveloped the camp as conviction settled upon some. They felt the weight of their transgressions, yet others hardened their hearts further, consumed by their folly. Moses turned to the Lord, interceding for the wayward people, saying, "Yet now, if you will forgive their sin, forgive it. But if not, I pray, blot me out of your book, which you have written." Exodus 32:32. The Lord responded, declaring, "Whoever has sinned against me, I will blot him out of my book." Exodus 32:33. And thus was the divide clear. Those who would remain faithful would be called, while judgment was reserved for those who forsook their covenant relationships. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting shadows over the camp, the hearts of the people trembled under the weight of their sin. Hope lingered amidst despair as Moses climbed back the mountain, seeking once more the mercy of God, yearning for reconciliation. Little did they know, the path of redemption was being etched anew, intertwined with grace that would echo through the generations. What grand designs awaited them as God's sovereign plan unfolded even in the depths of humanity's rebellion? The answer lingered in the air, filled with divine mystery, drawing hearts towards the promise of forgiveness and restoration yet to come. And it came to pass that as Moses ascended once more to the mountain of God, a great heaviness lay upon his heart. The Lord spoke to him, saying, "Cut 2 tablets of stone like the first ones, and I will write on these tablets the words that were on the first tablets which you broke." Exodus 34:1. Though his spirit bore the anguish of his people's disobedience, hope stirred within him as he climbed higher, seeking the face of the Almighty. "Lord," Moses addressed God, "your people have sinned greatly, yet I beseech you, show me your glory, that I may lead them rightly." Exodus 33:13. In response, the Lord answered, "I will make all my goodness pass before you. I will proclaim the name of the Lord before you, and I will be gracious to whom I will be gracious, and I will have compassion on whom I will have compassion." Exodus 33:19. Moses was brought into the cleft of the rock, and there the Lord hid him as his glory passed by. Moses beheld the back of the Lord, and his heart was filled with awe and reverence at the greatness of the God who had chosen them. As the radiant light faded, God's voice echoed, the Lord God, merciful and gracious, long-suffering and abounding in goodness and truth." Exodus 34:6. This proclamation carved upon Moses' heart the essence of the covenant, the very character of the Lord who desires a relationship with his people. Upon his return, Moses was met with a mixture of fear and longing. His face shone so brightly that the children of Israel could not gaze at him, and he was forced to cover his face with a veil when speaking to them. Yet each time he entered the presence of the Lord, he would remove it. Exodus 34:33, 35. They saw that something miraculous had occurred, and they heard again the commandments, "You shall have no other gods before me." Exodus 23. Yet, with the reception of a new covenant, came the responsibility that resonated deep within the marrow of the people's collective heart. They were called not only to hear, but to act in obedience, for the path to righteousness required more than mere acknowledgement. It demanded action steeped in faith. But doubt lingered within the camp, a creeping shadow threatening to unravel their commitment to the Lord. As fears of hunger and thirst arose, some murmured, "Would it not have been better for us to remain in Egypt? It is there we had bread and meat aplenty." Exodus 16:3. In those moments, the reality of their deliverance and the gravity of walking alongside God were overshadowed by their immediate wants. Moses was wearied not only in body, but in spirit. He called the elders together and reminded them of the mighty acts of the Lord. "He brought us out with a strong hand and an outstretched arm. He is our protector and our provider. Will we forsake him again?" As he spoke, the words took hold, stirring a flame of conviction among them. In the depths of their collective remorse, the presence of the Lord moved among the people, bringing forth repentance and a return to their covenantal vows. Moses offered sacrifices, praying, "O Lord, may you forgive us, that your presence may go with us." Exodus 34:9. And God answered, promising his abiding presence would not depart from them, for he is a God who delights in mercy and mercy's perfect design. As they committed anew to the covenant, the air thickened with anticipation, for God's purpose was unfolding even amidst their doubts. Little did they realize that as they sought obedience and reconciliation, they were but stepping stones on a path that would lead them not merely to a promised land, but to the very heart of salvation itself. The question remained echoing in eternity. What wonders awaited them as the tapestry of God's sovereign plan weaved through their faithful endurance? And lo, the time came for the people to resume their journey, the great wilderness stretching before them, a canvas awaiting the brushstrokes of divine glory. They gathered, renewed in spirit, their hearts attuned to the promises of God, for they had witnessed his unfathomable mercy and grace. With a steadfast resolve, Moses led the people toward the land flowing with milk and honey, a promise echoing through the ages. Yet, within their hearts, a profound mystery coalesced. A tension of faith and unfaithfulness lingered as the shadow of disobedience crept like a whisper amongst the congregation. The Lord commanded Moses, saying, "Gather the people, and I will speak to them. Let them know that I am the Lord their God, who brought them out of the land of Egypt." Moses obeyed, summoning the people to the foot of the mountain once more, as the tremors of divine power coursed through the very ground beneath their feet. As the day dawned, enveloping the mountains in hues of gold and crimson, the voice of the Lord resounded like thunder, shaking the hearts of all who stood in awe. "You shall be to me a special treasure above all people," he proclaimed, "for the earth is mine." Exodus 19:5. The majesty of his presence gripped their beings, compelling them to bow in reverence. Yet the whispers of doubt echoed still. Can we bear the weight of such glory? Can we truly follow him into the unknown? But God assured them, establishing a covenant marked not by strict adherence to law alone, but by the intimate relationship forged through faithfulness, obedience, and love. On that day, the words of the commandments were etched into the hearts of the people, a beacon guiding their every step, a call to holiness, justice, and compassion. "You shall not steal. You shall not bear false witness," he commanded, unveiling the heartbeat of divine righteousness. Exodus 20:15-16. Each declaration wrapped them in a cocoon of divine purpose, a structure within which they would flourish as his chosen nation. However, as the days wore on, it became evident that their journey was fraught with temptations. Time and again, their faith teetered, each moment of challenge revealing the frailty of their resolve. Yet, amidst the sifting trials, God remained faithful, a pillar protecting them by day and a cloud guiding them by night. And so it was that as they approached the promised land, Moses convened the people, recounting the glorious deliverance, recalling the faithfulness of God that had carried them through dark valleys and fierce storms. "Remember who you are," he urged. "A people set apart, chosen to reveal the greatness of the Almighty. Acknowledge the lessons learned in the wilderness and hold fast to his law." With faces set toward their destiny, the children of Israel stood on the precipice of a new dawn, poised to enter into their inheritance. Yet even as they gazed upon the land spilling forth with plenty, anxious hearts stirred within. They sent spies to scout the land of Canaan. Grim tidings returned, reporting giants in their midst, fortified cities poised to thwart their entry. Fear washed over them, and a cry emerged, trembling through the camp like a wind of despair. "Would it not be better to return to Egypt?" they lamented. In that moment, Caleb and Joshua, faithful stewards of God's promises, stood firm amidst the turmoil. "If the Lord delights in us, he will bring us into this land," they proclaimed, a declaration of unyielding faith in the face of doubt. Numbers 14:8. But the voices of fear drowned out the hopeful cries, and rebellion unfolded, tempting the people to forsake their promises and turn against their leaders. Moses fell upon his face, pleading with the Lord for mercy to temper his anger, reminding him of his covenant love. "Forgive their iniquity," he cried, "as you have been gracious to this people since Egypt." Numbers 14:19. And the Lord listened. Still, judgment stood as a solemn reminder of the cost of disbelief. "Shall they not receive the land I promised anchored in faith?" he declared. "But none of this generation shall enter, save Caleb and Joshua, whose hearts were pure and unwavering." Numbers 14:30. Thus it came to pass that the people wandered, decades woven through both hardship and redemption. Yet with each step they learned together the beautiful symphony of obedience to the very heart of God. He became their shepherd, their instructor, and though they stumbled, he remained their guide. Finally, the day arrived when the last of the wilderness wanderers found rest. The children of Israel, once timid and afraid, would now rise as a mighty nation. Joshua, who bore witness to their trials and triumphs, took the mantle of leadership, embodying the spirit of Moses, and led them across the Jordan into the land promised. "Consecrate yourselves, for tomorrow the Lord will do wonders among you," he proclaimed, Joshua 3:5. As the waters parted and the people crossed with hope anew, they entered that land replete with promises fulfilled, a reflection of God's unwavering covenant, a testament to his eternal faithfulness. And as they settled in the promised land, they would sing the songs of remembrance, woven with the fabric of their journey, a narrative rich in lessons learned, heartaches endured, and faith that flourished against all odds. They were transformed into a people of God, destined to be a light to the nations, a beacon of hope amidst the world's darkness. As the generations unfolded, the echo of their stories would endure, reminders of trust, perseverance, and the depths of God's unwavering grace. They would establish homes, build altars of worship, and recount the mighty acts of the Lord to their children, so that future generations would know he is indeed the Lord who delivers, the God who saves. Indeed, the ultimate purpose of their wanderings culminated not merely in a land, but in the revelation of a Savior destined to come. He would fulfill the deepest longings of their hearts, bridging the chasm of separation, offering redemption that spanned eternity. The promised Messiah awaited on the horizon, heralding a deliverance that would not only shape a nation, but redeem the world. Thus, as we reflect upon this sacred journey, let us remember the lessons etched in the hearts of those ancient wanderers. Let these stories inspire our own faith, beckoning us to hold fast as we traverse the landscapes of our lives. For the promise endures, echoing through the ages, inviting us to trust in his sovereign plan and embrace the path of his eternal love. And now, beloved, before you leave, I urge you, subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next powerful biblical stories. Leave a like now to help spread God's word through the algorithm, touching hearts across the globe. Comment your spiritual reflections. How did this biblical tale influence your faith? And share this video instantly with at least 5 friends who need to hear God's truth today. This is the moment to help spread biblical truth, for only true believers understand the importance of supporting content that manifests Christ's love. Don't wait even one more second. Join this mission to reach more souls for him.